Hello everyone, welcome to Business School 101. Deglobalization refers to a trend or process where there is a reduction in the interconnectedness among countries, particularly in terms of economic and trade relations. It can manifest in various ways, including increased trade barriers like tariffs and quotas, reduced foreign direct investment, localization of global supply chains, increased regulation, and heightened geopolitical tensions. So, why is it happening? What are its costs and potential benefits? How should we understand it? In this video, I will discuss these questions with you. Section 1. Causes. Here are 5 significant reasons contributing to deglobalization. Number 1. Geopolitical tensions. The rise in geopolitical tensions can lead to deglobalization as countries become more protective of their markets and resources. For example, the ongoing US-China trade war, which has resulted in both countries imposing tariffs on each other's goods, leading to a decrease in trade between the two largest economies in the world. Number 2. Economic policy uncertainty. Uncertainty over trade policies can act as a barrier to trade, even before any policies are implemented. This uncertainty can reduce trade volumes as businesses are hesitant to invest in markets with unpredictable regulations. For example, the Brexit process, which has created years of uncertainty regarding trade agreements and has led to fluctuations in trade and investment between the UK and the EU. Number 3. Security concerns. When security concerns are high, countries may introduce trade barriers to protect domestic industries that are deemed strategically important. An example is the tightening of export controls on high-tech products by several countries out of concern over their potential military use, which can reduce global trade in those goods. Number 4. Environmental policies. Efforts to combat climate change can lead to deglobalization if countries adopt policies that favor local production over international trade to reduce carbon emissions. For instance, the European Union's push for a carbon border adjustment mechanism aims to protect the bloc's ambitious climate policies and could potentially reduce trade with countries that have less stringent environmental standards. Number 5. Rise of protectionist policies. The return of protectionist policies by nations aiming to protect domestic jobs and industries can lead to deglobalization. A clear example is the America First policy stance adopted during the Trump administration, which included withdrawing from international trade agreements and imposing protectionist tariffs. Section 2. Costs. Most business practitioners and politicians believe that the costs of deglobalization significantly outweigh its benefits. Here are its major costs to the world. Number 1. Economic integration and market access. Deglobalization can lead to reduced economic integration, limiting countries' access to international markets and potentially decreasing export-driven economic growth. For example, the US-China trade tensions have resulted in both nations imposing tariffs, constricting market access and leading to a decline in bilateral trade. Number 2. Trade barriers and increased costs. The rise of protectionist policies and trade barriers can escalate the cost of international transactions, making goods and services less competitive globally. For example, when the US imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum, it not only affected exporting countries but also raised costs for US manufacturers that rely on these materials. Number 3. Sociopolitical tensions. Deglobalization may result in strained international relations, potentially leading to a breakdown in diplomatic cooperation and increased geopolitical uncertainty. For example, the Brexit process has created significant political and economic uncertainty, impacting the UK's relationship with the EU and causing broader concerns across Europe. Number 4. Technological innovation. Reduced international collaboration can slow the sharing of technological advancements, hindering the pace of innovation in various sectors. For example, the US restrictions on technology exports to China have limited the exchange of technological knowledge, affecting the development and deployment of new tech innovations. Number 5. Environmental impacts. Efforts to localize production due to deglobalization can lead to higher carbon emissions if not coupled with a transition to sustainable energy sources. For example, reshoring initiatives in the US could increase emissions if they are not accompanied by a significant investment in green manufacturing and renewable energy. Number 6. Global health preparedness. Deglobalization can impede the sharing of medical supplies and knowledge, affecting the global community's ability to respond effectively to health crises. For example, the initial global response to COVID-19 was hindered by protectionist measures and supply chain disruptions, emphasizing the need for international coordination in health crises. Section 3. Potential benefits. While deglobalization is often viewed as a negative trend, it can also present certain benefits. Number 1. Enhanced national security. Deglobalization can lead to countries focusing on self-sufficiency in critical industries, reducing reliance on foreign supplies and potentially enhancing national security. For example, some countries have encouraged the domestic production of essential goods and technologies to ensure that they are not overly dependent on other nations for their security and defense needs. Number 2. Job creation and economic reshoring. By bringing manufacturing and production back home, countries may experience job growth in those sectors, which can boost the domestic economy. For example, there have been initiatives in various countries to incentivize companies to reshore production, aiming to create jobs and stimulate local economies that may have been affected by outsourcing. Number 3. Protection of domestic industries. Deglobalization can provide a buffer for domestic industries against intense international competition, particularly for nations with industries that are not globally competitive. For example, tariffs and trade barriers can protect emerging or less competitive industries from being overwhelmed by foreign competitors, allowing them to grow and develop further. Number 4. Cultural preservation and local identity. Reduced exposure to global cultural and economic forces can help preserve local cultures and identities, which might otherwise be diluted or overshadowed by global trends. For example, some communities and nations value the preservation of their cultural heritage and local practices, which can be fostered by a more insular approach to economic and cultural exchange. Section 4. An in-depth conclusion. Throughout history, human societies have progressively integrated into larger political entities, from city-states to nations and now to regional blocs like the EU. However, the development of international structures to manage globalization's effects is currently at risk. National politicians are hesitant to yield authority to global institutions, which can also be unfairly blamed for unresolved international issues. Meanwhile, citizens fear the loss of national identity within larger political unions. Despite these challenges, unstoppable globalized forces like international travel, finance, and borderless threats continue to shape our world. The decline of international cooperation could undermine efforts to maintain peace, regulate corporations, ensure safety and health, and protect the vulnerable. While deglobalization may be transient, it could persist without reforming international institutions to be more effective and democratic. Neglecting this need may lead to increased conflict and exacerbate health and environmental crises, highlighting the importance of balancing national sovereignty with global cooperation. Alright, that's all for today's topic. If you have any questions regarding this video, please leave your thoughts in a comment below. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.